Hey everybody, it's Cody again, back with you at the Emerald Coast Science Center. Yesterday we were able to do a cool experiment, but today we want to do a creature feature. And I told you I was going to do Alex, our rose-haired tarantula, but I decided to do the surprise first because I like surprises a lot. We have Pascal, he's our veiled chameleon. He's really cool, you can see he's shedding a lot. So if I grab him and show you some of his skin, you can see he's shedding a lot. He's not the friendliest chameleon, so this is kind of a good time I'm able to show y'all because I'm not usually able to show everybody when there's a bunch of people in the museum. So it's one-on-one right now, so it's pretty cool. I have him in this dish because I'm gonna pour some warm water in there and see if he changes color in a little bit. But there's some cool things that I'd like to talk to you about with Pascal. Pascal is a reptile, right? So there's a few things that reptiles have, some characteristics of reptiles. They lay eggs, they shed their skin, they shed like Pascal is doing right here. We had some snakes that shed just a little while ago. And then they're cold-blooded, right? So Pascal does some pretty cool things to make sure that he stays warm, right? So we have him back here in his little cage, but something that chameleons do to stay warm is they change their skin color to make sure that. So let me give you an instance. So let's say he's really cold, right? And he needs to warm up. So the sun's out, what he can do is he'll change his skin color from green to brownish or a beige because it's darker and it'll absorb more light, right? So it's pretty cool. And so you're wondering, how does he change colors like that? Probably. What he has is he's got a superficial layer of skin. So he's got a layer of skin, and underneath that layer he's got some guanine crystals. So he's got some crystals underneath his skin that he can move around, and that will change the wavelength of light that goes in between it. So whenever he moves the crystals, it causes the wavelength to change, which changes the color. So that's really cool. It's really crazy to think about that he's doing that just simultaneously like that, but it's really cool. If you look, his feet are kind of like salad tongs, so you can look right there. He's got some crazy feet. He's probably gonna try and bite me a little bit. Yeah, it's okay. Me and Pascal have a funny relationship because every now and then I'll try and feed him a little mealworm, and he's not the friendliest guy, so I kind of have to like wait for him to open his mouth to try and bite me, and then I'll just shove the mealworm down there. He's trying to make a quick escape. Yeah, so you can see all that shedding right there. You can see how you probably can't see that, but how he's grabbing onto me right there on my fingers with those salad tongue-like feet, right? And then he can use his tail to wrap around stuff to make sure that he doesn't fall, which is really cool. Chameleons are usually going to be up in the trees, right? They don't want to be up in the ground because that's where they're most vulnerable. They're going to be up in the trees where they can hide. All right, let me see if I can pour some warm water in there and see if he'll like that. All right, bro, stay in here for me. We got a live video to make. All right, let's see. Hopefully he'll change. I'm not sure if he's going to change.
Oh.
He's okay.
It's not sure.
I think he's slowly realizing he likes the warm water. Yeah. Hopefully he'll change colors. I'm not sure if he will. But you can definitely tell he doesn't mind that warm water.
Bruce Dixon asked, how long does he live?
So they can live pretty long. Reptiles usually live pretty long. They can live to be about 20 to 30 years old. But it just depends on the type of chameleon.
For him, he's about 5 to 8 years.
Alright. I'm upset he's not changing colors. Usually whenever we put him in warm water, he'll turn a bright red. But his eyes are really cool too. So if you look over at his eyes, I got the water pretty warm. So he should like that a little bit. And the warm water is good for his scales, especially when he's shedding, because it kind of loosens it up for him so that he can kind of shed it off. Whenever a reptile, so if you have a reptile as a pet, Whenever you have those reptiles, you never want to peel off their shedding because it can hurt them. You can pull off some of their skin and it'll hurt them a lot. So you don't want to do that. You want to just kind of let it fall off themselves. What do you think Pascal eats? What do you think Pascal eats? I'll give you a hint. He's an omnivore, so he can eat both animals and plants, right? But he loves insects, so he's usually going to eat insects. He has a hard time eating by himself. You see that? He's trying to go after me. He has a hard time eating by himself, but that's okay. We just kind of feed him as it goes. He's a little grumpy dude. He's an old man, so he's pretty grumpy. So yeah, it's really cool. So since they're cold-blooded, they have to pretty much adapt to the environment, right? So if it's too hot, they need to find somewhere cooler, or they'll turn that greenish color where it won't absorb that much light to where their body won't stay super hot. And then if they need to get warm, they'll turn a brownish beige color, kind of darker. Their patterns will still show. You can't really see the patterns that much because he is shedding, right? So it's not really that visible. But let me try and grab him. He's going to try and nip at me, but it's okay.
Someone asked how old he is.
He's about 7, I think, right?
I'm not sure.
I think he's about 7. So he's kind of old. He's kind of skinny. They're usually a little bit bigger than that. He has a hard time eating sometimes. But something that's really cool with their eyes is they can move each eye independently, right? And so they have a long range that they can move their eyes to. See, he's looking at me right now, and he's also looking at JC behind the camera. And he'll stare at you for a while too. I like to play a game whenever we go in there. Whenever kids come into the reptile room, I'm like, hey, see if you can see the chameleon, and they're always looking for him. And the chameleon's always looking at them, but they can't always see the chameleon, which is pretty funny. So yeah, he eats mostly insects, but they can eat some plants. So they could eat some like greens, some collard greens, stuff like that. If you have chameleons at home and you'd like to feed them some stuff like that. He's shedding a lot. It's pretty crazy. Yeah. And so he's got some claws right here, right there, along with those salad tong hands that help him grab onto stuff, which is pretty cool. Reptiles lay eggs, right? So there's some reptiles that they do it a little bit differently. So we have a boa constrictor, Lucy, who is ovoviviparous, which is pretty cool. It means that she'll hatch her eggs inside of her body, and then as soon as they're hatched, she'll incubate them inside of her body. She'll keep them warm inside of her body, and then they'll come out looking like she's giving live birth, right? Because they're hatching inside, and then they're gonna exit out. The veiled chameleon just lays eggs, and then mostly all the other ones lay eggs, right? But it's pretty cool. Let me know if you have any questions about Pascal.
So can they change colors like red, purple, blue, or not as?
It depends on the type of chameleon. The veiled chameleon, they're usually going to change just to a brownish beige color. They can turn red too, and they can change color based on, like I said, thermoregulation. So making sure they stay a certain temperature, and also based off of mood, right? So sometimes whenever we put him in here, he likes the warm water, so he's going to turn a nice bright color. But he's not doing that right now. He's being a little grumpy. He's being a little shy, unfortunately. But that's okay. See him kind of flaring that stuff up. Yeah, and so whenever I'm trying to feed him stuff, he'll try and open his mouth really wide to try and bite at me, and then that's my opportunity to kind of shove that worm down there, which is pretty funny. Yeah, so this tail is able to wrap around things. See how it's kind of spiraled like that? It can wrap around things, tree branches and such, so that he doesn't fall off. I had a hard time taking him out of the terrarium a second ago because he had his tail wrapped around a tree branch and he wouldn't let go. So I'm trying to get some warm water on top, see if we'll change colors. Ask questions, y'all. I'd love to have some questions. He doesn't mind it. He likes the warm water. For sure. So the muscles around his eyes, So whenever, even like with us, like if we're looking around, we have muscles that'll pull on our eyes to look a certain way. So if I want to look right, I'm going to have a muscle pulling it that way to where I'm going to look right. They have muscles all around their eyes that are able to look all sorts of directions, and independently, right? They can be cross-eyed. They can look at you funny, which is really cool. But yeah.
He's got his eyes closed. He's really into that.
Yeah, he likes a lot. I'm probably gonna let him chill in here for a little bit too, after.
Do you want to show him a close up real quick before
Sure.
you
Of course.
move on to Alex?
Alright, buddy.
So they can see everything.
Alright, so
So
he's
you
dripping a little bit.
You can get like.
Super close. So you can see that water kind of loosened up his scales a little bit. But he's looking at you with the camera, and he's also looking at me right now. And that is his tail right there. He's a pretty cool guy.
You can see the clothes too, right there.
Nice. He's a grumpy dude though, so I'm gonna let him be for a little while. He likes that water.
Just want to stay.
Yeah, hopefully he'll stay for a little while. But what we're going to do next is we're going to show you Alex, who is our rose-haired tarantula. So Alex is really cool. I like showing Alex because it freaks people out sometimes. Freaks me out sometimes too, but it's okay. I was very intimidated when I first picked up Alex, just because she's a spider, right? And so she's a little intimidating, but once you get to know her, she's really cool. So this species is the Chilean rose-haired tarantula, and this type of species is really docile. They're not aggressive at all, and that's what they're known for. And so a lot of times people will go and pick them up in Chile and bring them over as exotic pets for people to have. So that's why they're really prominent as pets here, because they're so docile. They're not going to bite you as much. She is venomous. So do y'all know what the difference between venom and poison is? If you know the answer, you can comment down, let us know. But I'll go ahead and tell you. So she's venomous, right? Venom has to be injected into your body. So say Alex bit me, she would inject her venom into my skin. And then poison, you can eat something poisonous, or poison can touch your skin and it can irritate your skin. Like say poison ivy. So if you touch poison ivy is a plant. If you touch it, it's got oil on the surface of the leaf that can irritate your skin, cause it to break out. Also poison dart frogs, right? So those are really poisonous frogs. If you touch their back, even like with your finger, it would be really, really dangerous. But she's just venomous, right? So she can actually decide whether or not to inject her venom into you when she bites. I'll talk about that in a little bit though. She's an invertebrate, right? She does not have any backbone. Doesn't have any bones on the inside. What does she have though? Does anybody know? Does anybody know what she does have? I'll give you a hint. It's on the outside of her body. I'll go ahead and show you that. So she has an exoskeleton. And so an exoskeleton is pretty much just a hard shell on the outside. So kind of like how crabs have that hard shell on the outside, they can molt. They are invertebrates as well. She doesn't look like a crab that much, right? She's got some hairs and stuff. But what she does is she's got that exoskeleton, and especially when they're young, when they're growing, they'll molt a lot. So they'll shed their exoskeleton, and this is what it looks like. So this is what the molt looks like. You can see it right here. You can see right over here. So pretty much what they do is whenever they're molting, they'll lay on their backs like this, and they'll kind of just twitch a little bit. You'll see them twitch. And a lot of times pet owners, tarantula owners will think, if they're beginners, they'll think that the tarantula's died because it's just laying there all day. Like, it takes about a day. So they're thinking, oh no, my tarantula's died. But it's really just molting. So she's kind of itchy too whenever she walks on you. It's really just molting. So that's where she pulls the legs out right there. You can see she pulls those legs out right there. What she'll do is she'll secrete an enzyme that separates her exoskeleton from her body. So that enzyme will separate that, and then she'll start to work it out. But it takes a long time. It's like trying to pull off a latex suit, right? Because it's so tight to your body. Kind of takes a while. So it does take like almost a whole day for them to do it. It's really cool. And then on the other side of this, so you saw where the legs pull out, right? She would be laying on her back like this if you saw her, and then you could see her fangs. Let me see if you can see those fangs right there, which are pretty cool looking. They look pretty gnarly, right? Wouldn't want to get bit by those. Yeah, she's venomous, right? So it would hurt if she bit you. You would not have to go to the hospital. It's only about like a bee sting times 5, so it would hurt a lot. I would probably yell out a good yelp if she bit onto me. But I'd be okay. I would just have to go into the corner or something. But she's really cool. And if she was intimidated at you, there are some things that she would do to where you'd know to kind of back off, right? So she's kind of hesitant to bite. She's reluctant to bite. She's not going to really want to attack someone. But if she has to, she will, right? She's going to defend herself when she needs to. So what she will do is... So you can see she's an arachnid, right? She's got 8 legs total, 4 on each side. But then she's also got those 2 little arms right in front of her fangs, right? And so what she'll do if she's scared is she'll flare up those arms kind of like this to show her fangs, to kind of look scary and be like, hey, back off. You don't want any of this, right? And then if you're still kind of pushing her, what she will do is, sorry, our chameleon started to walk away a little bit, so we had to make sure he wasn't escaping. Anyway, what she will do is, if you still are messing with her and she has those arms flared up, she'll start shaking. She'll shake a lot, right? And so when she's shaking, it kind of looks weird, but what she's doing is she's loosening up all these white hairs that are all around her arms and her body. And when she loosens them up, if you're still not leaving her alone, which by this time I would probably leave her alone, right? If you're still not, she'll throw the hairs at you. And the hairs can actually get into your skin, cause irritation. They'll itch really bad. They can also burn, which that wouldn't be fun, right? I wouldn't want that to happen. And then after that, if you're still not leaving her alone, that's when she's going to give you a bite. She's going to give you a bite. She can decide whether to do a dry bite without venom or a bite with venom. So a lot of times she might not do a bite with venom just because they are kind of reluctant. But if you're messing with her, she's going to defend herself, right? If you look, she can't really bite upwards, right? So she can only bite down, so the only thing she could bite onto would be me right now. But she can only bite down. What she can do if she's ever chasing like a cricket or something is she'll kind of lunge forward and grab it with those 2 little arms right there in front of her fangs. Then she'll pull it. Ooh, sorry. Then she'll pull it underneath her to where she can bite down onto it. And then this is really kind of funny. I like talking about it. It's kind of gross if you think about it. But when she bites onto the insect, say a cricket, she'll secrete a venom into it. So that venom will start to liquefy the cricket, right? So it'll start to turn that cricket into mush. And she can't chew, so she can't take a bite of something and then put it down. Like we can. We can take a bite of an apple and put it down for later. She will have to slurp it all up. So she'll bite the insect, inject the venom, liquefy the insect, and then slurp it up like a slushie, which is pretty gross, but it's kind of cool. One time I was showing a field trip Alex, and I was looking at her kind of weird because she was looking kind of funny. She had her like arms up, like I thought she was like she was intimidated. But then I looked underneath, and she was eating a cricket underneath her. There was a cricket that she was slurping up while she was in my hand. And so it was pretty crazy. It was my first time ever seeing something like that, but it was really cool to see. And I was able to show the kids, and they were kind of freaked out too, which is pretty fun. Yeah. So arachnids have 2 body segments, right? They have 4 legs. What is another example of an arachnid, if anybody knows? I won't go ahead and give an answer. I'll see if anybody knows another example of one. Because whenever somebody thinks of an arachnid, they always think of spiders, but there's also some other ones, right? So all invertebrates are going to molt. Invertebrate meaning that they don't have a backbone. They don't have any bones inside of their body. Just that exoskeleton to protect them, right? But the exoskeleton isn't super duper strong, right? So if she were to fall from right here down to the ground, she would shatter into a bunch of pieces because her exoskeleton would not be able to take the shock of falling. So all that energy, when she hit the ground, it would have to go somewhere, and she would end up just shattering her exoskeleton, which would not be good. It'd be very sad. Yeah, you can see why they call them rose-haired tarantulas. It's got that rose color, and it's got all those nice hairs that she can fling at you. She was wanting to. Try and get a close-up, see if she can. Nice. And you can see she's spinning some webs a little bit. Let me try and... They're kind of like cobwebs. They're not really the webs you see with normal spiders where they can spin into a circle. But you can kind of see the little appendages right there that kind of weave the web. And they kind of just follow her butt a little bit. She's been on me sometimes, and then I've found that my hands were covered in webs just from her walking around. Ooh. So spiders have that cool, their exoskeleton's pretty cool because they have kind of hooks, small little hooks that help them walk on stuff. So like if I were to put her on here on my shirt, if she were to walk on my shirt, let's see if she'll go. No, she's not one to go. Let's see. So those hooks are allowing her to stay kind of locked in on my shirt, right? So she's got those tiny little hooks. If you've seen the first Spider-Man movie, when Peter Parker gets bitten by the spider, he looks at his fingers and he starts to grow these little hooks out of his fingers. It's kind of the same thing, right? Alex is really cool. I always like bringing her out. And then especially we have this fake tarantula right here too. So I always like to scare the little kids. Not really. I don't scare them, but it is kind of funny when they see that. But yeah. This is Alex. She got something right there. Let us know if you have any questions, y'all. Questions are always appreciated. And then if we're not able to answer back right now, we can always get back to you later. That's what we're here for. Get one more close-up of her, just so you can see. So that's where she spins the webs right there. She's really friendly. She's not aggressive at all.
You can see her eyes.
Oh, nice. That's really cool.
Her eyes are so small compared to her whole body.
Yeah. So did y'all think of any other animals that are arachnids? No? Nobody thought? Scorpion. Scorpion's an arachnid. Yeah. And they molt too. So they'll molt. So something that's really cool with Alex, so she's a female, right? So females have an advantage over males. So usually the females are a little bit bigger, and they also live longer. So females will live to be about 20 years old, and then males will only live to be about 5 years old. So that's the unfortunate thing about being a male tarantula. And like I was saying, whenever they're first born, they molt a lot because they have to keep growing. And so whenever they molt, it's pretty much because they're getting too big for their exoskeleton. So think if you have some clothes that you just constantly wear 24/7 and you just keep growing, you're going to eventually grow out of those clothes, right? So that's pretty much what happens with her exoskeleton. and she's able to molt that
so
off.
So I have some questions. One asked, how does she carry her sack of babies? And with that, another person asked, do they lay eggs?
Yeah, so they'll lay kind of like an egg sack, right? And so they'll kind of put it off to the side. They won't really hold on to it for that long, but they'll kind of put it off to the side where they can watch over it.
And then someone else asked, how do you know if it is a male or female?
I'm not sure how we know if Alex is, how we figured out Alex was. I think it's just we saw her lay some eggs, but when I first got here, I read that she was Alex, the female.
Even though she's named after a male scientist.
Yeah, even though she's named after a male scientist.
A couple of those.
Yeah.
I think, if I remember correctly, it had to do something near where her webs are. I think if they have the pincers, they're a female. Not 100% sure though on that.
Gotcha.
But I think that's how we know.
We'll have to read about that.
Yeah, we can definitely look it up and comment back on that for you.
That's what we'll do for sure. Yeah, this is Alex. Yeah, and we put good old Pascal back because he was trying to be an escape artist. He was trying to escape on us. But yeah, y'all. So we really appreciate y'all listening in to our little creature features. Again, we have a experiment tomorrow, actually.
Oblique.
Yeah, we're going to do some oblique ooze, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's some equipment that we need.
Yes, she sent it to me. It's cornstarch is like the main thing, but the cornstarch, water, food coloring if you want to, obviously a bowl to put it in, and then the surface you can clean up easily for it.
And we'll make sure if we missed any of the equipment you're going to need for tomorrow's experiment, that we'll get back to you right
we'll
after the video, just so we can let y'all know for sure too. So yeah, we are still closed, and the only way we're going to be able to do this is if we are getting help from the community, right? So we're trying to help out the community by interacting, making sure that y'all are able to watch cool videos of some animals like Alex here and Pascal, and then also do some cool experiments so y'all can be scientists yourself. Oh, one thing I meant to talk about yesterday on yesterday's experiment is how fish float. So we talked about what floats and sinks, and then if you ever think about trying to swim in a swimming pool, when you try and swim deeper and deeper, it gets harder to swim, right? That's because you got that air in your lungs, and then once you release that air, you can kind of start to sink. But how does that work with fish? So it kind of depends on the type of fish, but most fish will swim with something called a swim bladder. And so what that is it is a kind of like a sac in their body that they can fill up with air to rise up, and then they can release that air so that they can sink down to the bottom, right? So they can make quick depth maneuvers because they do live in a 3D environment, right? So we only live in a 2D environment. We can only walk on the ground. They live in a 3D environment. But the cool thing of how they do that, you're kind of wondering how they can fill up with air when they're underwater, right? So it's pretty cool. They have oxygen in their blood, right? So they'll have air in their blood. The gills allow oxygen to be pulled from the water, and there's air in their blood vessels. And so what they'll do whenever they want to rise up, they'll pull all that air from the blood vessels into that swim bladder, and it'll collectively build right there, and that'll help them rise to the top, which is pretty cool. And then whenever they want to go back to the bottom, they'll just release it back into their nearby blood vessels. So that's something I forgot to talk about yesterday. I wanted to talk about that, which is pretty cool. But that's not all fish. So most fish do that. There are some fish that are different. But yeah, y'all, we will still be here. Make sure to try and donate if you can. It'll be much appreciated. And we will stay here trying to make new videos for you. Thanks.